Close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine waking up with no walls around you, no roof above you, nothing between you and a darkness so complete you cannot see your own hands. The wind outside is not just cold, it is alive. It tears through everything. It finds every gap, every crack, every weakness. The ground beneath you is not just frozen, it is stone, unbreakable, unforgiving, and the cold itself? It does not just touch your skin. It reaches inside you, into your chest, into your bones. No help is coming, no rescue, no warmth waiting somewhere nearby. Just you, just this night, just this cold. And yet your ancestors walked through nights exactly like this. Not once, not twice, but thousands upon thousands of times across hundreds of thousands of years. How? That single question holds the greatest survival story this species has ever lived, and today we are going to tell it. Before we get to how they survived, we need to truly understand what they were surviving, because the words Ice Age do not do it justice. Picture a world where the sun disappears for months at a time, where every direction you look is white and frozen and empty, where finding a single tree means walking for days, where one bad night without shelter means you simply do not wake up. That was their world. And here is what makes it even more extraordinary. The human body was never built for any of this. We are tropical creatures at our core. Our ancient origins are in the warm open grasslands of Africa. Our bodies still carry that blueprint. No thick insulating fur. No natural fat reserves built for extreme cold. No ability to slow our own metabolism and sleep through the worst of winter the way other animals can. Expose a human being to serious cold without protection and the body begins to fail within hours. Not days. Hours. Meanwhile, every creature sharing that frozen landscape was perfectly equipped for exactly this environment. Some carried their warmth inside layers of thick fur and fat.
Others simply slept through the worst months entirely. Others walked away to find warmer ground. Humans could do none of those things. By every biological measure, we had no business surviving what was coming. Humans had been on this earth for at least 300,000 years, and every single winter was a test they could not afford to fail. But we carried something that no other creature on that frozen landscape possessed. A mind capable of imagining solutions that did not yet exist, and hands capable of building them. That turned out to change everything. Every survival story from this era begins in exactly the same place. Fire. Not because it is the most obvious answer, but because without it, every other answer becomes impossible. Humans had been living alongside fire for at least 300,000 to 400,000 years before the Ice Age reached its worst. By the time the cold arrived at its most deadly, they were not learning to use fire. They had already mastered it completely. When researchers uncovered ancient hearths buried deep beneath frozen ground, what they found was not primitive and rough. What they found was sophisticated and deliberate, structured fireplaces, carefully maintained heat sources, some burning at over 600 degrees Celsius, hotter than 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit, temperatures that modern industrial equipment would struggle to match. When fuel became scarce across the open frozen land, they did not surrender. They burned bone. They burned fat. They found a way to keep the flame alive because letting it die was not an option. Fire was not warm. Fire was the line between living and not. Fire solves one problem, but fire cannot follow you. The moment you step beyond its reach, the cold reclaims everything it temporarily lost. So ancient humans did something that required not just intelligence but imagination. They looked at the animals built for this cold, and they took what those animals had. Humans were skinning bears for their fur in northern Europe at least 300,000 years ago. We know this because the cut marks are still visible on ancient bear paw bones, right exactly where you would cut to pull a skin away cleanly. But a loose skin leaks heat through every gap and every opening, and a loose skin is not enough to survive a real ice age. The real transformation came from something almost laughably small, a sliver of bone, a tiny hole, a length of sinew thread, the sewing needle. This single invention separated survival from slow death in ways that are difficult to overstate. Before the needle, a skin was just a covering. After the needle, clothing became architecture, fitted, sealed, layered, designed to trap heat against the body and keep the cold permanently outside. The difference between draping something over your shoulders and wearing something built precisely for your body is the difference between struggling and thriving. They also discovered that animal fat rubbed directly onto exposed skin before going out into the cold created a barrier that neither wind nor frost could easily penetrate. Practical, unglamorous, remarkably effective. The image most people carry of ancient humans is one of dark caves and firelit walls. The reality across much of the Ice Age world was something far more impressive. Across the frozen plains where caves simply did not exist and wood was nearly impossible to find, ancient humans looked at what surrounded them in abundance and made a decision that still astonishes researchers today. They built their homes from the bones of the largest animals that ever walked the earth. Enormous foundations set into frozen ground, curved frames rising upward from tusks and ribs, walls packed densely with hides and earth and moss until the structure held heat against temperatures that should have made survival impossible. The largest structure found is around 18,000 years years old, built at the absolute coldest point of the Ice Age. And the site shows signs of being used again and again across hundreds of years. But what truly reveals the depth of their intelligence is not the material they used. It is the design decisions hidden inside these structures. Entrances deliberately positioned lower than sleeping areas so that heavy cold air would pool at the threshold and stay there while warmth rose naturally to where the family rested. Snow packed strategically around outer walls to use its insulating properties against the very cold it was made of. Locations chosen specifically for natural windbreaks that reduced the brutal force of open plain winds. These were not shelters built from desperation. They were solutions built from understanding. Cold is the enemy you can see. Hunger is the one that works quietly in the background until it is too late. For months at a stretch, the Ice Age landscape offered almost nothing to eat. No growing season, scarce game, a silence across the land that meant starvation for anyone who had not prepared. And preparation was exactly what ancient humans became extraordinary at. A successful hunt was never just a meal. It was months of future survival compressed into a single opportunity. Meat preserved through smoke and cold and drying, stored in underground chambers where the earth itself acted as refrigeration, submerged in frozen water sources to extend its life even further. Nothing was discarded. Every part of every animal carried value. Bones for tools, fat for fuel and skin protection, hide for clothing and shelter. And the hunts themselves were not individual efforts. At sites in eastern France, beside tall limestone rocks, Ice Age hunters returned to the exact same hunting grounds for tens of thousands of years. Not occasionally, consistently, generation after generation. Kill big, dry the meat, survive the winter. That was the plan. And that plan worked. The individual who hunted alone often starved. The group that hunted together survived. Here is something that modern life has made us forget entirely. Ancient humans were never surprised by winter. We are the ones who get caught unprepared. We assume systems will hold. We trust that warmth will simply be available. When it is not, we are shocked. They were never shocked. Their entire calendar was built around the coming cold. Every warm month was an investment in surviving the frozen ones. Every resource gathered, every preparation made, every relationship maintained was part of a system designed around one central goal: make it to spring. And they did not try to make it alone. The people who slept crowded together in small spaces were not doing so reluctantly. They were doing so deliberately. Shared body heat in a well-sealed shelter is a genuine and powerful source of warmth. Those who lived alone were consistently the first to die when temperatures dropped beyond a certain threshold. Community was not just emotional comfort. Community was thermal strategy. And then there is the possibility that nobody has fully resolved. At a site in Spain called the Pit of Bones, scientists studied early human ancestors from around 430,000 years ago, and the bones they found carried a pattern that does not match normal human life. Seasonal interruptions in growth, signs of prolonged metabolic slowdown, evidence of the body drawing on its own reserves across extended periods of inactivity. The pattern matches, with uncomfortable precision, the biological signature of hibernation. Some researchers have proposed that certain early human populations may have survived the most extreme winters not through technology and preparation alone but through a physiological response we no longer possess: a deep seasonal slowdown, a biological pause through the worst months. The scientific community remains genuinely divided on this, but the possibility that your ancestors once slept through winter the way bears do is not something that serious researchers have been able to simply dismiss. Some questions from this deep in our past do not have clean answers yet. Now let us just pause and actually picture this for a moment. -40 degrees. Open frozen landscape in every direction. The only code available is something you skinned yourself from an animal that very recently wanted to kill you. And your ancestor stood up, picked up a sharpened stick, and went looking for a mammoth. Not because they wanted to, because if they did not, everyone they loved would starve. One wrong step and an animal the size of a large truck would end them completely. And if the mammoth did not get them, infection from a small cut might, or the cold itself, or another group of humans equally desperate for the same food. Every single day was a negotiation with death. And here you are, genuinely stressed because your phone battery is at 12%. Your ancestors packed wounds with moss and kept walking. You need 15 minutes to mentally prepare before a difficult phone call. They built houses out of mammoth bones with their bare hands. You cannot assemble flat pack furniture without a breakdown. They earned tomorrow every single day. And they did it so well that eventually tomorrow became so safe that we forgot it was ever in question. Here's what I want you to carry away from all of this. These people had no advantages. No technology handed down to them. No systems built by previous generations. No safety nets of any kind. They had a cold that wanted to kill them. A hunger that never fully went away. A darkness that lasted for months. And
and a world that offered nothing freely. Against all of that, they built fire. They built clothing. They built homes from the bones of giants. They stored food with the precision of engineers. They held each other close and shared everything they had. They did not survive the Ice Age because conditions eventually improved. They survived because they refused to accept the conditions as final. And the direct result of every single choice they made, every fire they kept burning, every needle they threaded, every hunt they organized together, is you. Warm, safe. Here, winter was the greatest enemy the species ever faced, and we did not just survive it. We turned it into something we complain about on the way to a heated car. That is not something to take for granted. That is something to remember.